Nazreen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us again tonight on the Masjid-e-Ali YouTube channel. Tonight we are commemorating and observing the Shahadat of Bibi Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, salamu alayhi. Before we start the program tonight, I request Brother Ghulam Heather for recitation of Hadith Qissa. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli
ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله وأتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء. قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، فإنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبي واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you very much, Brother Ghulam Haider, as always, for your recitation. Nazreen, Khawateen Hazrat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us tonight, again on the Masjid-e-Ali YouTube channel. Tonight we will continue a 3-night series of majalises, tonight being the second majalis to commemorate and observe the Shahadat of Bibi Sayyida Fatima Zahra, salamu alayhi. This conclusion of these series of Ayyam-e-Fatimiyyah will be concluded tomorrow night, Saturday night. Majlis again will start at 7:30. Inshallah, we hope that you will join and tune in to join us then as well, inshallah. As always, tonight we will start the program with the recitation of Surah Salam and Marcia, which will then be followed by the English lecture by Maulana Rizwan Rizvi, and then followed by Noha and Matam. To isi ke saath we will start this program tonight. Ek salawat padhiya ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli
ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So salam marsi ke liye ye khadim hazir hai. 4 misre hain, mulaza farmaiye. Zikr shabi آتے ہیں برابر آنسو ذکر شبیر پہ آتے ہیں برابر آنسو اور جب یہ ڈھلتے ہیں تو بن جاتے ہیں گوہر آنسو اور یہی آنسو تو ہیں اپنے لیے کشتی نجات یہی آنسو تو ہیں اپنے لیے کشتی نجات ہم کو لے جائیں گے ایک دن لب کوثر آنسو ذکر شب پہ ایک صلوات پڑھی اعلی محمد و آل محمد.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجہم.
سلام کی چند شعر پیش خدمت ہے. ایک علی کا تذکرہ سارے چمن کا تذکرہ ایک علی کا تذکرہ سارے چمن کا تذکرہ اور فاطمہ کا تذکرہ ہے پنجتن کا تذکرہ ایک علی کا تذکرہ سارے چمن کا تذکرہ اور حل عطا سے فاطمہ زہرا یہ ثابت ہو گیا حل عطا سے فاطمہ زہرا یہ ثابت ہو گیا عرش پر بھی ہے تیرے گھر کے چلن کا تذکرہ ایک علی کا تذکرہ سارے چمن کا تذکرہ او شہ پرے جبریل کو ابھی فرشتے دیکھ کر شہ پرے جبریل کو ابھی فرشتے دیکھ کر ڈرتے ڈرتے کرتے ہیں خیبر شکن کا تذکرہ ایک علی کا تذکرہ سارے چمن کا تذکرہ اور عرش والے عرش پر جائیں تو حیرانی ہے کیوں عرش والے عرش پر جائیں تو حیرانی ہے کیوں اصل میں معراج ہے سیر وطن کا تذکرہ ایک علی کا تذکرہ سارے چمن کا تذکرہ اور ابتدا شبیر جس کی اور زینب انتہا ابتدا شبیر جس کی اور زینب بے اور زینب انتہا کربلا در اصل ہے بھائی بہن تذکرہ ایک علی کا تذکرہ اور یاد آ جاتا ہے اصغر اور سکینہ کا گلا یاد آ جاتا ہے اصغر اور سکینہ کا گلا جب بھی ہوتا ہے کہیں تیر و رسن کا تذکرہ، کلی کا تذکرہ، سارے چمن کا تذکرہ، اور فاطمہ کا تذکرہ ہے پنجتن کا تذکرہ، کلی کا تذکرہ۔ درود پڑھیے اعلی محمد و آل محمد۔
جزاک اللہ، جزاک اللہ، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
ایک سورہ فاتحہ۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم، ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین، اہدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم۔
سورہ فاتحہ کی درخواست ہے آج کے جو اسپانسر ہیں ان کے مرحومین کی، اور ہم سب کے مرحومین جن کا کوئی پڑھنے والا نہیں ان کے لیے بھی ایک سورہ فاتحہ۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ صلی
علی محمد و آل محمد۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
بابا کو روتے روتے جو زہرا گزر گئی، بابا کو روتے روتے جو زہرا گزر گئی، اور غل پڑ گیا کہ بنتے نبی کچھ کر گئی، اور فاقوں کے رنج سہ کے حضور پدر گئی، اور محبوب کبریا کی عزادار مر گئی، محبوب کبریا کی عزادار مر گئے، اور 18ویں برس نے یہ آفت دکھائی ہے، آل نبی کو چرخ نے لوٹا دہائی ہے، آل نبی کو چرخ نے لوٹا دہائی ہے، اور سبتین گھر میں آئے جو بے تاب و بے قرار، اور اسما سے پوچھنے لگے اماں کا حال زار، اور وہ بولی نیند آ گئی ہے شکر کردگار، اور کھانا تو جلد کھا لو کہ بھوکے ہو میں نثار، اور بولے کہ چین دے گا زمانہ تو کھائیں گے، اماں ہمیں کھلائیں گی کھانا تو کھائیں گے، اور یہ سن کے بے قرار ہوئے وہ جگر فگار، اور چادر زمین پہ پھینک کے چلائی بار بار، اور بچے ہیں ان کو صبر دے اے میرے کردگار، اب وہ کھلانے والی کہاں تم پہ میں نثار، اور پیارو تمہاری پالنے والی گزر گئے، کھاؤ گے کس کے ہاتھ سے اماں تو مر گئے، اور پھر تو علی کے گھر میں قیامت بپا ہوئے، اور تازہ بلا میں آل نبی مبتلا ہوئے، اور ماتم پہ ماتم اور عزا پر عزا ہوئے، اور غل تھا رسول پاک پہ زہرا فدا ہوئے، اور سب رو رہے تھے بنتے رسول قدیر کو، بچوں کو ہوش تھا نہ جناب امیر کو، اور شیر خدا تھے مضطر و مغموم ایک طرف، اور سر پیٹتی تھی زینب و کلثوم ایک طرف، اور پکڑے تھے دل کو سید مسموم ایک طرف، اور بسمل تھے خاک پر شہ مظلوم ایک طرف، اور حیدر قریب آئے تو ایک خط نظر پڑا وہ تڑپے کچھ اس طرح کے امامہ اتر پڑا وہ تڑپے کچھ اس طرح کے امامہ اتر پڑا وہ لکھا تھا یہ کہ آخری مجرا قبول ہو اور یا شاہ تم وسیع جناب رسول ہو اور صدقہ حضور کا میرا مقصد حصول ہو اور منہ سے نہ کہہ سکی کہ حزین و ملول ہو اور منہ سے نہ کہہ سکی کہ حزین و ملول ہو اور میری وصیتیں نہ فراموش کیجیو اول یہ ہے کہ آپ مجھے غسل دیجیو اور دوم یہ ہے کہ شب کو جنازہ اٹھائیو اور مردے کا سایہ بھی نہ کسی کو دکھائیو اور یہاں تک کہ قبر بھی نہ کسی کو بتائیو اور کتنی جگہ نشان لحد کا بنائیو اور سوم یہ ہے کہ پاس یتیموں کا کیجیو شفقت سے بولیو کبھی گڑ کی نہ دیجیو اور نانا کا ذکر رو کے پھر ایک بار کرتی جاؤ ماتم رسول کا بدلے زار کرتی جاؤ اور پھر تازہ یاد سید ابرار کرتی جاؤ اور چھاتی سے پھر لگا کے ہمیں پیار کرتی جاؤ اور یہ سنتے ہی دکھا دیے رتبے رسول کے نکلے کفن سے ہاتھ جناب بطول کے نکلے کفن سے ہاتھ جناب بطول کے اور بابا کو روتے روتے جو زہرا گزر گئے بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
اسی کے ساتھ I now request tonight for the English lecture our very own Maulana Rizwan Rizvi Sahab. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.
سنتم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم. صدق اللہ العلی العظیم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Before I begin, request for Surah Fatiha for the sponsors of tonight's program, their marhumin, please recite, remember them with the Surah Fatiha as well as your own marhumin. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم ولا الضالين. Also request for dua sihat, dua shafa for all of those people who are suffering, struggling, going through a difficult time, physically, financially, spiritually. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them complete recovery with the barakat of this ayat of Surah Naml. Let's recite it 5 times together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ يَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ 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 السُّوءَ وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ أَإِلَٰهٌ مَّعَ اللَّهِ قَلِيلًا مَّا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to our virtual program in commemoration of the demise and the Shahadat of Lady of Paradise, Khatun Jannat, Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alameen, Fatima Zahra, Salamullahi alayha. As we extend our condolences to Imam of our time on this tragic Shahadat of his grandmother and all of the Sadat around the world and all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat. Indeed, these were very struggling and tough times in the life of Janab Sayyidah. And with all the hardships that she went through and coped with, and still she did not raise her voice in making dua against, although she wanted to, but refrained and restrained by Amirul Mu'mineen's orders and commands, and she obeyed. And she did not make dua against those who perpetrated this crime. This only goes out to show her high status and the value that she possessed, and the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given her such a status, where she'll be the first one to enter paradise. And not only that she will be the first to enter paradise, when she enters, the angel will call out to all the people present over there to lower your eyes, to bow your heads, hatta tamurra Fatima, until Fatima passes from that place. We began our discussion last night, and we went through some of the practical lessons from the life of Janab Sayyidah, her life as a daughter, her life as a wife, and her life as a mother, her akhlaq and her ibadat, and some of the features which are highlighted from the kalam of Ma'sumin alayhi wassalatu wassalam. We'll take it further tonight and go more in depth of some of the historical events that took place, which are of high importance, not from the aspect of creating any sort of controversy, but from the aspect of educating ourselves. So whenever we discuss these issues that are documented in the books of history, there could be 1 or 2 reasons. One reason is to cause fitna. If that is the reason, if that's the case, then of course it's not permissible based on the recent fatwa of Ma'sumin. But if the purpose behind it is to educate the community in a way where you're not trying to bash someone and you're not trying to humiliate someone, but just stating the facts as has been mentioned in the books of history. And that is what the right way of doing it as well. And of course, when you are explaining the haqq, you are revealing the truth, and you're backing up your claims with authentic riwayat and ahadith and books of history, then there shouldn't be any, um, sort of pain, or by listening to some of these haqaiq and these realities, one should not feel saddened, or that, people that they revere were possible that they committed or perpetrated such crimes. It is possible, because there are different types of people that are being mentioned in Quran, and we need to clarify the criteria of those who lived in the time of Rasulullah. Not all of them were adil, not all of them possessed the status of some of the other companions of Rasulullah. With that in mind, because there's a lengthy discussion, I want to get right into it. Again, I recited this ayat from Surah Al Imran, ayat number 31, which says, "Say, if you love Allah, then follow me, and Allah will love you and forgive you and forgive your sins. And Allah is all forgiving, all merciful." When it comes to the concept of forgiveness, when it comes to the concept of sinning, of course, this ayat and many ayat of Quran refer to all of mankind. But of course, while this ayat is referring to people like you and I, Prophet is being addressed in this ayah. You won't say that this ayat is telling Prophet to, this ayat is telling us to follow the path of Prophet. The Prophet does not have to follow his own path. He's already on that path. That's the path he's, establishing for us. So we need to get on that path. With that said, it has to do with love. It has to do with obedience. Without it, it does not really make any sense. We've given this example numerous times, that what is the criteria of love? So, well, there's a love between parents and their children. Children who say, well, I love my father, or I love my mother, I love my parents, I love my grandparents. But at the same time, this son, this child, or this daughter, while they say, well, I love them, but I don't want to listen to them. It is possible that this is something which is said. Now, if you were to ask the parents that they claim that they love you, but they're not willing to listen to your jais and legal demands, and because it is to an extent obligatory upon the children when it comes to the matters that are not going against the Sharia, to show obedience to the parents. Quran goes to high extents to talk about the high status, exalted place that the parents possess, and to go ahead and be obedient to their commands and fulfill their commands. Unless, of course, they call you towards God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they invite you towards shirk and those things, then of course you don't have, and they don't have any walayat upon you, and you don't have to follow them. But we understand the concept of obedience and the concept of love. They go hand in hand together. Person who says I love but does not obey, this love might be there superficially, but it is not there wholeheartedly. The love which Rasulullah is demanding is the love which is along with obedience. Rasulullah can care less if a person loves them but does not obey them. But a person who loves and obeys, and that is the difference between those who are the muhib of Ahlul Bayt and those who are the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. You heard Hadith Qissa? Hadith Qissa was recited earlier today before this program. In fact, our programs begin with this hadith. Towards the end of the Hadith Qissa, we had this segment which says, min shi'atina wa muhibbina illa wa nazalat alayhim ar-rahmah. The Shia and the Muhib, two categories of people are mentioned. Everyone who's a Shia is also a Muhib, but everyone who's a Muhib not necessarily is a Shia. Why? Because there are many people who display love to Holy Prophet. There are many non-Muslims who, show that there's love. There are a lot of Hindu shu'ara who have composed poetry about Ahlul Bayt. And when you read their poetry, it's mind-boggling, it's baffling that to that extent person shows devotion. But when it comes to application as to what Prophet believed in, do you follow that as well? They may not do that. So therefore, there's a distinction between the two. But Shia is someone who not only believes, follows, but the love is already understood, right? The hard part is to be able to obey. So كل شيء يحتاج إلى العقل والعقل يحتاج إلى الأدب. And of course, in order to clarify this distinction between the love and the obedience, there's this concept of aql that comes into play. This aql is something which joins both of these two aspects, these two dimensions. It tells you that the person that you're loving, you should obey them as well. Or otherwise, this love is superficial. And this concept is clarified through this aql and the intellect. But the riwayat that I recited for you says everything is in need of aql. And aql is in need of adab. Someone might be able to use their aql, but they're lacking adab. And a lot of people claimed and said that Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib والسلام, and they say this, was not a good politician. He did not know politics. Imam, who's in his 4 years of Khilafat al-Zahiri, the letters that he has documented to Malik Ashtar, to his governor of Basra, and other people, shows Imam's siyasat and his politics and his mastery in it. And of course, they were looking at the siyasat and the politics of fallible people, those who are prone to making mistakes, make law one day and then change it tomorrow, or things that they're telling others to do, they don't apply them on themselves. So from that aspect, they said Ali والسلام, was a good person, but he was not a good politician, according to them, which is a wrong sentence, which is a wrong statement. No, Imam Ali was at Kamal in all of the aspects of his life. He was at the peak in all dimensions of his life, whether it comes to his bravery, whether it comes to his knowledge, whether it comes to his ibadat, whether it comes to his siyasat. We believe that Imam Ma'soom is at the highest level, and no one could be at the same level as Imam. But they say, well, then why is it that Ali, his siyasat failed in front of the siyasat of Amir Sham? Imam also highlighted toward that, tilkan nakira. That is not siyasat. That is, using your methods of cunning to work your way around and the dirty politics that was played. And hence, Imam al-Islam describes how that person uses his aql. Amir Sham is also using his aql, but his aql is void of adab. So therefore, that aql has no value whatsoever. So no one is above Prophet. This is our claim. But even Prophet is saying, Adabani Rabbi arba'ina sana wa ba'athni. That my Lord taught me adab. He gave me the proper ingredients of, manners and morality. And then he sent me towards the people for 40 years. He said, Adabani Rabbi min makarim al-akhlaq. My Lord taught me the highest standards of morality. Adabani Rabbi fa ahsanu ta'dib. That my Lord gave me this adab, taught me how to deal with people with respect, with morality, with ethics, and how good is the ta'dib of my Lord. And therefore, there are many such sentences that you find from the kalam of other imams as well. Imam Sadiq ﷺ said, my father taught me adab with 3 things. And he mentioned different aspects of that. So Masumin who are at the highest level are still, and Rasulullah is saying that Allah has taught him adab. What is this adab, or this act of morality that they're referring to, or behavior, or the characteristic that they're referring to? Adab means this concept in your contemplation, in your speech, in your conduct with people. Adab means respect in front of someone who has superiority over you, right? So when it comes to your parents, you show kamale adab. When they come, you stand up. When they are standing, you remain standing until they sit down. You give them first before you take it yourself, for example, if there's something to eat. You let them talk and you lower your voice before them. And all of these things are taught by our parents. They're part of our, adab that is given to us from the very beginning. These are things related to our upbringing, our nurturing and rearing. So usually those who are superior to us, whether it's parents or our elderly in our family or in our community, or someone who has superiority over us from the aspect of ilm and knowledge, of course, Quran tells us the criteria that there's no one superior to anyone illa bit taqwa, right? And riwayat also conclude that aspect. But from the aspect of someone who has vilayat over us, someone who's superior to us from these aspects, we show what? We show adab in front of them. We respect them. But there's also respect and adab of Allah. There's adab and respect in front of Rasulullah. There's adab and respect in front of imams, in front of Quran, in front of parents, in front of ulama. Have you not seen the upbringing of our culture? And this is something which is, again, intuitive. But to an extent, you have to teach it to your children. Now, we've seen our parents always respecting the scholars. Whenever a scholar would come, regardless of their age, young or old, if they are wearing this libas of, alim-e-din, we show respect. You see elderly people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, they would stand up for when a Maulana walks in, even if the Maulana is young, because they're not so much respecting the person, but the ilm that they possess and whom they're representing, and they're sitting on the mimbar of Rasulullah. So there are three adab in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First is adab fikri, meaning don't become suspicious about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't have su'izan when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your fikr, your thinking, your intellect and your contemplation should be void of any sort of wrong and ill feeling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So naturally, we'd all say we never had that. But imagine the time when something was taken away from you. Imagine the time when you were deprived of something. And a lot of time, things that we constantly see that others enjoy and we don't have that. Right away, we open our mouths for shikayat. Right away, the shikayat is something which is what? Having a wrong suspicion towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ill feeling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Badgumani suezan, as we say it in Urdu. Now that is against the adab that have been taught to us by Masumin alayhi salatu wasalam. God gave Fulan children, He didn't give us any. He gave someone this much wealth, He didn't bestow upon us. He gave them sons, He didn't give us any sons. He gave them daughters, He didn't give us any daughters. Or our du'as are never accepted. These other people, they make dua right away, their dua is accepted. They made dua to go to Hajj, they went to Hajj. They made dua go to Ziyarat, they went to Ziyarat. I've been making this dua, nothing is happening. Bazanti, one of the companions of our 8th Imam, Ali ibn Musa radha, he said, I've been asking for something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 3 years. He said, I'm getting suspicious. Asa an tuhibbu shay'an wa huwa sharrun lakum. Imam said, don't do that. Because the reason you're not granted that thing is because there might be some good in it for you that you're not being given. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, Asa an tuhibbu shay'an wa huwa sharrun lakum. That sometimes you like something, you're fond of something, you show interest in it, but it is bad for you. You say, well, how could something be bad for me when I love it? Well, look at the love the kids show towards certain things. For example, you tell your child that don't watch this show. It's not good for you. You say, but I love this show. Don't play this game. It's not good for you. But I love this game. Don't go to this place. It's not good for you. But I love going to that place. Don't hang out with those people. They're not good people. But I love these, they're my friends. So right away, you see that this is what we're doing as parents as well. We're telling our kids to refrain from this, refrain from this, refrain from that, because to them, those things might be good. but we know from our experiences that those things are not good for them. They're not thinking from the same level. So when you make dua, have the belief, this is the word of Masum, that the acceptance is at your doorstep. As soon as I raise my hand, oh Allah, right away have this good suspicion about Allah, husn al-dhan as we call it, that your acceptance is right at your doorstep. And that's how quickly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will fulfill this command or fulfill this request and dua from you. فَظَنَّ أَنَّ حَاجَتَكَ بِالْبَابِ. That fadhan, that have this good dhan and guman and suspicion that your hajat is at the doorstep. He said, husnul dhanni billahi min afdalil ibadat. When you have good suspicion towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is the best of the ibadat. Did Prophet not pray for the life of his 18-month-old son Ibrahim? Did Imam Hussein not pray? Did Hassanan not pray for their mother? You know, all of the Ma'asumeen, they prayed, they made dua. The fact that they were making dua, they had, although they knew that their mother will die, Rasulullah knew that his son will not survive. So this dua is not in vain. But they have belief that when they're making the dua, it's right at the doorstep. But if it does not come true, there was something good in it for it, and there might be some good for the people afterwards. So that's first adab, which is adab-e-tafakkuri, fikri, thinking wise. You're thinking, you know, we got to be very careful when it comes to tawheed. Tawheed is not just believing that there's one God, but not even thinking about associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second is adab-e-guftari, in your speech. That how good is your speech? You know, a person could be very well-mannered, you know, raised with the right, you know, virtues and whatnot. But the moment the person opens their mouth, right away, good or bad, is revealed. So a lot of time when it comes to showing adab in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not just in our contemplation, because Allah is aware of what's in our hearts. So the moment you think ill of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows what's in your heart. But when you say something ill from your mouth about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then everybody else knows what you are thinking. And so we see that a lot of time in some of our poetry, we extend and we go beyond the boundaries that are set, the limits that are set for us. And we do su'ezan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You find in the examples of Quran that the disciples of Hazrat Isa ﷺ came to him and they were jealous of Jews. They said, Allah sent food to the people of Musa from heaven, and why doesn't He send it for us? إذ قال الحواريون يا عيسى ابن مريم هل يستطيع ربك أن ينزل علينا مائدة من السماء. The word هل يستطيع means, is Allah capable? Does He have the power to send food for us as well? It's lacking respect and adab toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People ask questions, can Allah do this? Can He create a stone so big that He cannot lift Himself? You know, can He create another God? And, you know, all of these different types of questions that are asked. Can an artist paint without colors? No. That doesn't mean that artist is lacking the ability. It's just that there are certain things that have to be established. They're muqaddima for other things to happen. So Hazrat Isa responded, قَالَ اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. You say, هَلْ يَسْتَطِيعُ? That is Allah capable? Fear Allah if you are believers, if you are mu'mineen. Hazrat Isa changed the thought process completely. Changed it into kamal adab, the peak of you know, mannerism or akhlaq and ethics. All of the du'as in Quran start with Rabbana. One you know, one of the distinctions that we find, all of these qunut that you recite, you say Rabbana atina fid dunya, Rabbana afrigh alayna, for example, Rabbana ighfir li wa li walidayya masalan, Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana, Rabbana innana sami'na, and so on and so forth. Except this dua which Hazrat Isa ﷺ made, which includes both Rabbana and Allahumma. They disrespected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying, can God do this? Hazrat Isa completely changed and he said, let's make dua with Rabbana and Allahumma. It's just taqeed upon taqeed because Rabbana says the same thing as Allahumma. Allahumma is Ya Allah. Rabbana is, oh our Lord. So to use both of them, usually one of the two is used. Masumeen have used Allahumma in their du'as. Allah uses the word Rabbana in all of these du'as that you find in Quran that I gave you example of. But only one place in Quran you find Rabbana and Allahumma together, right here in this ayat. When Hazrat Isa made this, Allahumma Rabbana anzil alayna ma'idatan min as-sama'i takunu lana 'idan li'awwalina wa akhirina wa ayatun minka. That, oh Allah, send upon us ma'idah, this dastarkhan, this table full of food from the heavens, so that it would be Eid for us, for the people who are awwal and the people who are akhir. And it has ayat in it for us. So one of the evidences of Jashan and Eid is when food comes from the heavens. So if the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib comes from the heavens, shouldn't we celebrate? Of course. When food is coming from the heavens, you go ahead and celebrate. Hazrat Isa is marking that to be celebration. Eid, the love's Eid is used. So when the wilayat of Ali is being sent down from the heavens, shouldn't that demand that you go ahead and celebrate even more? Of course. Someone made this dua, Allahumma irhamni warham Muhammad wala tarham ahadan. Prophet said, dayyaqatis wasi'ah. That's why you limited the wus'at of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, have mercy upon me and mercy upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and don't show mercy to anyone else. Prophet said, zayyaqat wasi'ah, that you have limited the wus'at. That's why one must make general dua, keeping it umumi. That's why in Namaz al-Shab, you're asked to make dua for 40 people. Now, 40 is just a number. You can make dua for more than 40. A lot of times people are very strict about it. No, 40 is just given because how many people can you remember? So 40 people to generalize. And that's why you might be standing all by yourself when you're praying Salatul Fajr. In the morning, no one else is watching you. Everyone else in the house is sleeping. It's still you say what? You recite Surah Fatiha and you say, Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. Ihdina. Who is this Ihdina? How can you talk about Ihdina when you're by yourself? So here we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to include others in our du'as. And then we have what is called Adab-e-Raftari. Adab as far as our actions are concerned. So our fikr, our mind, our kalam, our guftar, our speech, and as well as our actions. All of them should be in line when it comes to showing proper conduct in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't take lead in what Allah has prescribed, what Prophet has given to you. Don't go beyond the boundaries which Allah has set with your own self. Rasulullah said to his companions, break your fast. It was the month of Ramadan. They came out of the city of Medina. He said, during the daytime, he said, break your fast. Many people didn't break their fast. While Rasulullah is breaking his fast, he's eating, showing that your fast is gone because you have traveled out of your homeland, for example. But people didn't break. Just like today, a lot of time people ask this question, can I fast while I'm still traveling? No, you can't fast. Unless, of course, your travel is for your work or your work is to travel. Then it's a different story. Like, the pilots, the drivers, and so on and so forth. They're constantly driving. They're constantly flying from one place to another. So they will fast. They will pray full wherever they go. But for ordinary people, that is not the case. But this is the point where Rasulullah is trying to tell them, and they're disobeying. He said, "La tuqaddimu bayna yadi Allahi wa rasulih." Don't go beyond what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set the boundaries and Rasulullah has set the boundaries for. If Allah is saying something, obey it. This is where your actions come into play. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam said, Inna Allah farada lakum al-fara'id. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, made certain things obligations. And there are muharramat that one must avoid. So these are obligations one must perform, and these are manhiyat that a person must stay from, refrain from. There are certain boundaries, don't cross them. Don't associate partners with Allah. Don't deny the ismat of prophets and imams. Rest, don't put yourself in harm's way. تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَعْتَدُّوهَا وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. These are the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This ayat has appeared in Quran numerous places. These are the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَا تَعْتَدُّوهَا. Don't cross the boundary. And whoever crosses the boundaries set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Rest assured, these are the people who are ظالمين. So people include different things in salat. They say, well, including the wilayat of Imam Ali in tashahud. Who said you can do that? You know, there's a rebuttal about it. But they will question you saying, oh, if you don't read it, that means you are munkir wilayat Ali. So if I don't recite that, then I'm what? I'm munkir wilayat Ali. This is where adab in your actions and deeds must be there. What Allah told you to do, what Prophet told you to do, what Imams told you to do. If you go beyond that, then you're going beyond, you're crossing the limits that are been set. So if salat is taught to you by Rasulullah in a certain way, and if Imams showed us how to pray in a certain way, which is of course in line because Awwaluna Muhammad, Awsatuna Muhammad, Akhiruna Muhammad, wa Kulluna Muhammad. All of them are Muhammad. Their kalam is the same. Their minds are the same. Their raftar, their guftar, their speech, and their behavior, they're all the same. So you won't think that Rasulullah taught us one thing and Imam Masum taught us something else. No. Their kalam all are in line with each other. So when Rasulullah didn't teach us in this way, and when Imams didn't teach us in this way, and if we go ahead and add this thing out of love, and I'm not doubting those who are reading it, they're not doing it for any other reason but for their love and affection. But these are the boundaries that are set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but you saw the difference is that when this was created only recently, you saw there's a division that has come in between the Shias as well. Right away, there's people who are referred to as muqassirin. There are people who are referred to as those who lower the status of Masumin by not reciting and addressing the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen in their salat. How can you do that? When a person is Maulai, when a person believes in the imamat, when the person believes, I don't need to recite this in order to prove my wilayat of Ali, that I believe in the wilayat. I know the ayat of Quran says, Innama waliyukumullah wa rasuluh wa ulil amri minkum. And Atiullah wa Atiur Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Wa innama waliyukumullah wa rasul wa alladhina amanu alladhina yuqimuna salat, and those who give zakat while they were in ruku. Both of these ayat are enough to prove my wilayat is that belongs to Ma'asumin, and I believe in their wilayat. So the examples of Janab Sayyidah and her adab, because that's eventually is where we wanted to get to. Janab Fatima salamullah alayha asked for help from Rasulullah to provide a servant. Remember when we're going through her story, we saw that she was struggling, suffering. Rasulullah saw her on numerous occasions. And Imam Ali even offered, he said, why don't you ask your father to provide for a servant? And it was not an out of the ordinary request, because at that time there were a lot of captives of war, and there were a lot of people that were under the possession of Rasulullah that he could have easily, and these slaves were given out. In fact, one of the ways Islam eradicated slavery is by sending these captives of wars to the houses, and those who were already slaves bought them and trained them or learned something from them and then set them free. That's why you still find in the books of fiqh, you pick up any book of fiqh, first kafara is to do what? To go ahead and free a slave. And the ayat of Quran talks about it as well. So therefore, freeing the slaves was something which Islam gradually established so that the slavery could be ended. The most progressive of the societies that we live in, slavery still existed, up until the 60s, not too long ago. But Janab Sayyidah, this was a genuine request from her to ask for a servant. Although after 7th year after Hijri, their financial troubles went away. Rasulullah gave her oh my daughter, I'll give you something which is better than a servant. What did he teach her? Tasbih. If today someone tells me, or of course, no comparison whatsoever, comes and requests, Maulana, we are struggling, we're suffering. Can masjid help us? I say, I'll teach you a tasbih. I'll teach you a dhikr. Go ahead and read this dhikr. Turn around and say, well, go somewhere else. If the askar could help us, why would we come knocking on your door? But alhamdulillah, masjid was able to help and support community members, not just in this recent pandemic, but for a long time. And you heard the details of that in our fundraiser. But when he taught her that, the troubles went away. Because up until the 7th year after Hijrah, their financial troubles existed, but after that, it went away. Why? Because Fadak was given to Fatima to Zahra, salamullahi alayha. She waited, she showed patience, and the result of that patience was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed an ayat on Rasulullah, wa ati dhal qurba haqqahu, and give your family their haqq, their due haqq. And so, of course, ayat of Quran are for everyone. Even Rasulullah is ma'mur to perform, because certain commands in Quran include him as well. So Fadak was given to Janab Fatima Zahra. She was the owner, but she let Prophet take the profits from the income of it and kept enough for her needs and whatever she needed. And the rest was distributed to help out the community and the poor and the needy. Here, I think it is worth to briefly explain the explanation pertaining to Fadak. Now, I'm sure you've heard a great deal from the different scholars. I'm not here, again, as I said in the beginning, to pick up something, to bash someone, controversy, or to name names. But based on what we have in the books of history, both Shia and Sunni, this is a very limited, brief commentary on the concept of Fadak or the land of Fadak, because a lot of us have heard about it, and still you see people ask questions. Maulana, what was Fadak, and how big was it, and how small was it, and what was the extent of this Fadak, and so on and so forth. We see that in order to understand the extent of it, you look at that it is mentioned Rasulullah used to, from the income of this Fadak, take care of the military needs. So that means there's a lot of income coming from Fadak. And when Muawiyah, he took over the reins and he usurped, he took this and he distributed amongst his family members. So that's how long and big that area was, that it was distributed amongst several people. It was a place close to Medina, or rather it is a place close to Medina, which included many gardens and parks inside of it. It was an inhabited place. That means people live there. So therefore, when people live in a certain area, it is inhabited and there's greenery in it. There's water available and all of those things. Just like when you go and buy a house, you look for the neighborhood, if it's an inhabited place or if it's something which is remote area. No, this was an inhabited place owned by the Jews. When the leaders of the Jewish community saw the increasing power of Islam and their fight against the Jews in Khaybar, they sent a person to Rasulullah and offered peace. Prophet accepted their peace offer right away. So without any bloodshed, without any fighting, this peace was accomplished. In the contract of this treaty, half the land of Fadak was to be given to Rasulullah, and this became solely his personal property. Question that some of our brothers raise is why? Why is it personal property of Rasulullah and not for the entire community? Like other, booties of war, Mal Ghanimat, that is distributed amongst the people equally. Why this was solely for Rasulullah? Well, according to the laws of Islam, the land which comes in possession without a war belongs to Rasulullah, and the rest of the Muslims don't have any share in it. That's why you find so many ayat in Quran when it comes to, and even those things in which there is our share, first it's given to Rasulullah. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and so forth. Similarly, many such ayat which talk about concept of giving any sort of infaq, first Allah, then Prophet, and so on and so forth. So you see that there's share in generally everything. The share belongs to Allah and Prophet. That is the distinction. But here it was exclusively for Rasulullah. Therefore, the land of Fadak was under the control of Rasulullah during his lifetime, and he used to distribute the gains from it to, amongst the Banu Hashim and the poor and the needy of Medina, until the verse was revealed. وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ. Give your family their due rights. And Prophet gave Fadak to his only daughter. Even if Ahl Sunnah claimed that there were 4 daughters, the other 3 had died in the life of Rasulullah. The only surviving child was Fatima to Zahra. So, آتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ. ذَا الْقُرْبَ over here refers to Janab Sayyidah. Were there other reasons behind this bestowal? Why would Rasulullah give it to his daughter? Such a huge commodity. Does Prophet not know that Janab Sayyidah will not live that longer? Isn't he the one who's telling her that you'll be the first one to come and see me? So that means there are other reasons behind this bestowal. Pay close attention to this aspect of it. Prophet, who has seen the life of Fatima in struggle, never wanted to hoard money for himself or for his children. Never went out and gave stashes of money and servants when he even had it in his possession, because that's the life that they wanted to show. Prophet also knew that Fatima won't be alive for too long after him. So then there must be other objectives as well. We'll try and understand some of these objectives. Number 1, bestowal of Fadak was not without wisdom. There are many things that came out of the bestowal of Fadak. Some of them right away, some of them later on. It definitely showed the true face of some of the people who were very close to Rasulullah. But aside from that, other reasons are that Rasulullah knew that Ali is his successor. And after him, he will be the Khalifa of Muslimin. That's something which Rasulullah has already announced on numerous occasions. Again, brothers of Ahl Sunnah, they might debate with us. The Rasulullah did not leave any, successor. Just like they say, well, the riwayat that I will recite from Ahl Sunnah, just like they deny Janab Sayyidah her right, they say, well, Rasulullah did not leave any successor, which is again not in line with the trajectory, with the way Islam works. No, Rasulullah definitely left a successor, and on numerous occasions Rasulullah pointed it out, and Ghadir Khum was the final announcement of that. But Rasulullah knew that Amirul Mu'mineen Imam Ali will face a lot of hardship. People won't accept his rulership that easily and obstruct his wilayat and his caliphate, because there wasn't a house in all of Arabia that Ali didn't kill their family members during the wars that were waged against Islam in the time of Rasulullah. So Battle of Badr, Uhud, Khaybar, Khandak. Khaybar is with the Jews, Khandak, Hunayn, and all those other battles that took place. There was not a person in all of Arabia that Ali did not have a hand in, sending their family members to Jahannam. So that's why you see that even in the time of Yazid, he said, this is for the Shuhada of Badr, that if they were here, they would see that I have taken the revenge. So they were all suffering from that. That Imam Ali had a hand in killing these kuffar in these battles, and now they had all converted to Islam. They still remember, not too long ago, only a few years ago, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, after Fatih Makkah, 8 years after Hijrah, only 4 or 5 years ago, Ali was killing people in war. So Ali would face this, obstruction from the people. Ali can use this wealth and this fortune from Fadak to mold the hearts of these ghuraba, these fuqara, and those who are against him. So that could be one of the reasons why Rasulullah wanted to give this Fadak to Janab Sayyidah, so that Ali would be the real recipient of it, and his Al will be the real recipient of it, so that they can go ahead and be the rightful caliphs to use this money for this purpose. And of course, you need money to run the affairs of the government. And that's why when the first caliph came into power, first thing he did was he took Fadak away. Why? Because it was providing a lot of wealth toward the battalions and the army and so on and so forth. Hence, Fadak was given to Fatima Zahra during the lifetime of Rasulullah. She used it for her expenses, spent it for her things, and then rest was given to the poor and the needy of Banu Hashim, as well as the poor and the needy of the people of Medina. So when the first caliph sat on the chair of Khilafat, the first thing he did was remove the workers of Bibi Fatima from Fadak and took charge of it himself. So that also shows you that it was under her possession. This is a very important concept, that it was under her possession. She had complete charge of it. Rasulullah gave it to her during his lifetime. She was running the affairs of it. She had complete control of it. And her workers were working in the land. Keep those things in mind. I couldn't emphasize more. So when Janab Fatima Salamullah Alaiha claimed her right, she was told what? Prophets don't leave any inheritance. This riwayat you find, Nahnu ma'ashirul anbiya la nuwarrith ma taraknahu sadaq. That we, the group of anbiya, we do not leave any virasat, and whatever we leave is sadaqah. So prophets don't leave any inheritance. But if you claim this, this claim that Abu Bakr, the first caliph, he said, if you're claiming this, for example, even though we know that prophets don't leave anything, and I know that you don't lie, you're Siddiqah, but please provide witnesses. So she brings Imam Ali and Ayman as to bear witness that Prophet had given this property to me during his lifetime. So he's being a judge right now. And then she recited the verses of Quran. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَعُودَ Surah Naml 16. Some say, well, this is a Nabi inheriting another Nabi. Janab Sayyida is not a Nabi. She recited another ayah from, Surah Maryam. فَهَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. So grant me from yourself an heir who may inherit from me and inherit from the house of Jacob. So while this might be again referring to Hazrat Yahya, who's the heir of, for example, Hazrat Zakaria, and so on and so forth. Then she recited another ayat. يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ. Allah enjoins you concerning your children, for male shall be the like of the share of the two females. So make sure that you give from your inheritance. Surah Nisa, ayat number 11. First caliph continued repeating, prophets don't leave any inheritance. نحن معاشر الأنبياء لا نورث. So here we heard that ayat are to take precedent over a hadith. Here we see hadith is taking precedent over ayat. That means hadith is being used to rebuke an ayat of Quran. Some historians have written that it was enough to convince the first caliph, and he actually agreed to give it back. They made a contract and he said, yes, you have given enough support and proofs and you can have it back. But retreated only when Umar al-Khattab came and revoked the contract, and he said what? Ali and Ayman cannot serve as witnesses because they could be biased. They're the family members. Hassan and Hussein cannot serve as witnesses. Why? Because they're still children. So right away he revoked the contract and he tore it apart. And of course the caliph, first caliph, he agreed with him. Amir al-Mu'mineen came to Abu Bakr and he said, let me ask you a question. Remember what I had said earlier. I know I'm going into more details of it, but I'll inshallah conclude over here. Remember what I had said. Rasulullah gave this in his life. Rasulullah had, Imam Janab Sayyida used the gains from it during her life and the life of Rasulullah. She had workers working, of course it was a land of agriculture. There were people working there, which the first caliph removed and had put the government people on it. So all of those things in mind, keep those to look at this evidence. So Imam Ali said to Abu Bakr, he said, let me ask you a question. He said, sure. He said, if there is someone or if there's some money in someone's possession, let's say this person, Zaid, he has money in his hand. And I, Ali, come and say, well, this is my money that he has in his hands. And we come to you as judge. Who will you ask for witnesses? Zaid, who is currently holding on to this money? Or me, who's claiming it is mine? You know, for example, even if Zaid has stolen this money from me, and I'm saying this is my money, who are you going to ask for witnesses? From Zaid, who currently possesses and holds, has control over this money? Or are you going to ask me to give witnesses? Abu Bakr says, of course, I will ask you, because you're claiming to possess that. Imam Ali says, then why are you depriving Fatima? Why are you asking Fatima Zahra to produce witnesses when she possessed the land and had her workers working on it, and you came and you took over it? I rest my case. I don't need to say anything more. Of course, this was just a brief understanding, because a lot of people ask questions about Fadak, the limit of it. I explained that as well, where it was, and how in other speeches, maybe we'll include it tomorrow, how it came back and forth and was given, then taken back, then given and taken back. So it must have been a real good commodity that people, even those who had the reign of the entire empire in their possession, they did not want to let go of this important piece of land. So Janab Sayyida suffered a great deal. One of the musibat that began for her was from the time of the wafat of Rasulullah. Wafat of Rasulullah was not just a big calamity for all of Muslimin, but it was much bigger calamity for the family of Rasulullah, especially his only daughter. When Prophet's condition started to worsen, Janab Sayyida became worried and started weeping for her father, just like any daughter would do so. He says, فَدُقَّ بَابُهُ فَقَالَتْ فَاطِمَةُ مَنْ ذَا؟ قال أنا رجل غريب أتيت أسأل رسول الله أتأذنون لي في الدخول عليه. When Rasulullah was suffering, he was sick, there was daqul bab, someone knocked on the door. Janab Sayyida said, who is it? The man responded, Ana rajulun gharib. I'm a stranger. You don't know me. But I have come to ask Rasulullah, and can you give me permission to enter? فقالت فاطمة يا عبد الله إن رسول الله في شدة المرض قد غشي عليه فعليك أن ترجع. Janab Sayyida said, oh, servant of Allah, indeed, Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, is in shiddatul marad. He's suffering. He's very sick. قد غشي عليه. And he's in and out. He's not stable. فعليك أن ترجع. It is upon you, better for you that you return. ثم استأذن بصوت مهيب. Then she heard the call once again. قال يا سيدتي إني رسول إليه. Oh my Sayyidah, I am Rasul, I'm a messenger towards him. فلا بد لي من الدخول عليه. I must enter upon him, and I cannot enter without his permission. I've been sent as a messenger to him. I cannot leave without seeing him, nor can I enter without his permission. These are the words that are documented in the books of riwayat, both Sunni and Shia riwayat. When people, and we all know who it was Malakul Maut who was asking for this permission, because Rasulullah said, فَفَزِعَتْ فَاطِمَةَ حَتَّى أَفَاقَ رَسُولُllَّهِ. Janab Fatima, she became upset until Rasulullah, opened his eyes, and he said, Ya Fatima, أَتَدْرِينِ مَنْ هَذَا? Do you know who that is? قالت لا يا Rasulullah, I don't know who that is. قال هذا مفرق الجماعات ومنغز اللذات هذا ملك الموت. This is someone who separates people. This is someone who takes the luxuries away of the life. This is someone who's malakul maut. ما استأذن والله على أحد قبلي ولا يستأذن لأحد من بعدي. He's never asked permission to enter upon anyone before me, and he will never ask for the permission once again after me. So when Malakul Maut is showing this adab before entering the house of Fatima Zahra, before entering the house of Rasulullah, as the ayat of Quran says, then why these people attack the house of Fatima Zahra? Shahadat of Bibi Fatima is tragic. But I want to share rather, that how others have explained, such as Ayman. لما توفيت فاطمة, when Janab Sayyidah left this world, حلفت Ayman. Ayman made this covenant, أن لا تكون بالمدينة, that she does not want to live in Medina anymore. And she could not bear the loss of the house that is void of Fatima Zahra. That's why she traveled to Mecca. While on her way, she felt really thirsty and she became close to dying. فَرَفَعَتْ رَأْسَهَا إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, she raised her head towards the skies and she said, Ya Rabbi ataqtulani atshanan, oh my Lord, are you going to take my life in this state when I'm thirsty? You're going to kill me, I mean taking my life, while I'm atshan, wa ana khadimatu bint nabiyik Muhammad al-Mustafa, while I served the daughter of Nabi of Allah, Muhammad al-Mustafa. She said this. As soon as she said this, water was sent from the sky, and water for drinking purposes was sent from the sky, and she drank from it, and the riwayat mentioned that she never felt the thirst ever again. After having drank that, she lived for many years. She never felt thirsty after that. Even the people of Mecca, for imtihan, for testing her, they would send her to, these desert areas, and she would be sent for a while to test if she gets thirsty or not. She would never feel the thirst again. This man says, Waraqa ibn Abdullah al-Azadi, he said, I left my house to go perform Hajj. Near the Kaaba, I saw an elderly woman who was doing the kalam with Allah with utmost eloquence and was saying, O Lord of this house, I'm hopeful that you will raise me and resurrect me with my masters who are pure. Warqa said to her, it seems that you're the servant of Al-Bayt. Ayman was the servant as well, serving, of course, related to Imam Ali's sister, but at the same time, serving Janab Sayyidah. And Fidda was the same way. He said, it seems that you have served the Ahlul Bayt. She said, yes, my name is Fidda. And I used to be the servant of Fatima Zahra. Warqa asked Fidda to describe the death of Fatima, and I'll bring you towards the close. She said, my lady spent 27 days weeping for her father after his death. Then she was afflicted with the illness from which she never recovered. One day when Ali returned home after Salatul Zuhr, he saw women in the house were weeping and wailing. And he inquired, and he came running toward the room of Fatima Zahra, and he saw she was laying unconscious. Imam Ali couldn't bear to see this. He picked up Fatima Zahra in her hands, and he said, oh, mother of Hasnain, speak to me. Open your eyes. She did not respond. He then said, oh, daughter of Rasulullah, answer me, speak to me. There was no response. And as soon as he said, oh, Fatima, speak to me. This is your husband Ali. She opened her eyes. She said, it is my last time. I saw my father in a dream who said to me, Fatima, and this is the last night of your survival. ألا لعنة الله القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إن لله وإنا إليه راجعون. बार अल्लाह हमारी इस बात कबूल फरमा, हम गुनाहगार हैं, हमारे गुनाहों से दरगुजर फरमा, हमें अहले बैत अलैहिस्सलाम के नक्श कदम चलने की तौफीक अता फरमा, उनकी तालीमात पर अमल करने की तौफीक अता फरमा, इमाम के ज़ुहूर में ताजील फरमा, उनके आवान उस्सान में शुमार कर, रब्बना तक़ब्बल मिन्ना इन्नका अंतस समीउल अलीम। मातम हुसैन।
हुसैन भरे दरबार में रोती रही खड़ी ज़हरा, भरे दरबार में रोती रही खड़ी ज़हरा, भरे दरबार में रोती रही खड़ी ज़हरा। نہ جانے کس طرح، نہ جانے کس طرح حق مانگتی رہی زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، سند کے ٹکڑے ہوا میں اڑا کے ہنسنے لگا، رسول زادی سے گستاخ ایسی کہنے لگا، بتا وہ کون سی، بتا وہ کون سی جاگیر ہے تیری زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، حسن حسین سے سچے گواہ بھی جھٹلائے، رلا کے بی بی کو ظالم ذرا نہ شرمائے، بھلا نہ پائے گی، بھلا نہ پائے گی امت کی بے رخی زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، یہ اس کی بیٹی ہے جس نے دو لخت چاند کیا، وہ جس کے نور نے ہر روشنی کو ماند کیا، اسے ستاؤ نہ، اسے ستاؤ نہ، دکھیاری ہے بڑی زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، نبی کے بعد یہ کیا ہو گیا زمانے کو، کیوں کلمہ گو ہے چلے تیرا گھر جلانے کو، سہے گی کس طرح، سہے گی کس طرح تو یہ ستمگری زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، نہ جانے کس طرح، نہ جانے کس طرح حق مانگتی رہی زہرا، بھرے دربار میں روتی رہی کھڑی زہرا، حسین 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 حسین،
حسین حسین، یہ غربت علی ہے، 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 حق مانگنے جو زہرا دربار میں گئی ہے، یہ غربت علی 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 ہے، آواز آ رہی ہے میں بنت مصطفیٰ ہوں بابا کے کلمہ گویوں میں ہی تو فاطمہ ہوں پہچاننے سے دنیا انکار کر رہی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
سن کر سلام حیدر کوئی نہیں ہے رکتا واجب نہیں سمجھتا کوئی جواب دینا افسوس فاطمہ بھی یہ بات جانتی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت
علی ہے
مسجد میں سر جھکائے مولا کھڑے ہوئے ہیں حاکم کی تہمتوں کو چپ چاپ سن رہے ہیں صدیقہ سب کے آگے جھٹلائی جا رہی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
کہتی ہے رو کے زہرا جانے نہ دوں گی تنہا پٹکے میں مرتضیٰ کے ہے ہاتھ سیدہ کا اب ہے کسی کا درہ اور دختر نبی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے
ایک کوچے میں پہنچ کر دیکھا ہے مجتبیٰ نے ظالم نے ضرب ماری کیسے خدا ہی جانے بنت نبی زمیں پر غش کھا کے گر پڑی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
یہ
غربت علی ہے
پہلو بھی ہے شکستہ ہاتھوں پہ بھی ہے چھالے ہے آپ کی امانت اب آپ کے حوالے یہ کہہ کے مرتضیٰ نے میت نبی کو دی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
یہ غربت علی ہے یہ
غربت علی ہے
کافی ہے بس یہ فقرہ رونے کو زندگی بھر ہاتھوں کو اپنے اکثر کہتے تھے ملک حیدر خیبر شکن کی زوجہ
گھٹ گھٹ کے مر گئی ہے، یہ غربت علی 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 ہے۔ کیسے لکھے تکلم غربت علی ولی کی، زوجہ صحابیوں کے دربار میں گئی تھی، بیٹی شرابیوں کے دربار میں گئی ہے، یہ غربت علی 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 ہے۔ حق مانگنے جو زہرا دربار میں گئی ہے، یہ غربت علی ہے۔ یا حسین
حسین یا حسین یا حسین، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔ متوجہ زیارت۔ السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم یا خیرۃ اللہ، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔ السلام علیکم یا بنت رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت خلیل اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت صفی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت امین اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت خیر خلق اللہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت افضل الانبیاء اللہ ورسلہ وملائکتہ، السلام علیکم یا بنت خیر البریہ، السلام علیکم یا سیدۃ نساء العالمین من الاولین والآخرین، السلام علیکم یا زوجۃ ولی اللہ وخیر الخلق بعد رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم یا ام الحسن والحسین سید شباب اہل الجنہ، السلام علیکم ایتها الصدیقۃ الشہیدہ، السلام علیکم ایتها الرضیۃ المرضیہ، السلام علیکم ایتها الفاضلۃ الزکیہ، السلام علیکم ایتها العوراء الانسیہ، السلام علیکم ایتها التقیۃ النقیہ، السلام علیکم ایتها المحدثۃ العلیمہ، السلام علیکم ایتها المظلومۃ المغصوبہ، السلام علیکم ایتها المضطہدۃ المقہورہ، السلام علیکم یا فاطمۃ بنت رسول اللہ ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم یا غریب الغرباء، السلام علیکم معین الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام علیکم شمس الشموس وانیس النفوس ایها المدفون بارض توسلی ابن موسى رضا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام علیکم امام الانس والجان، السلام علیکم شریک القرآن، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل اللہ مخرجک وظہورک وجعلنا من اعوانک وانصارک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔ Inshallah, join us tomorrow night for the last and final majlis of this series of majalis, which will conclude tomorrow night. Inshallah, program will start at 7:30 p.m. as it did